Okay, so we are starting right now. The video is running. So, notes? Notes? I want to see everybody's notes out. Everybody should have a spiral ring notebook. All right? Want to be sure. I'm not gonna allow any more people using, just sheets of paper, because that does not work. I know well
You need to
enough.
keep your notebook, and you need to take it to high school.
Yeah. What? Spiral ring notebook would be way better, because what happens is those things fall out, right? And it's also going to be hard to turn them in, because I will be collecting the notes probably next week, and it will count as a test. So you want to make sure everything that I put on this board goes in your notes, okay?
Is that the name of the new
Yes, this is the lecture, percents, okay? And you always put the date too in the top
What was
left
the date
corner.
of last Thursday?
I don't know, you can look it up. 2/23/17 is today's date. So we're going to talk about percents. Percents are probably, you're going to probably use these throughout your life more than anything else. They use them all the time, Taxes, whenever you drive, whenever you buy stuff at the store, right? Whenever you buy stuff at the store, there's grocery receipts tax. And grocery receipts tax is something like 8.125% or 8.245% or something. I don't know. It keeps changing. And then you have tips, right? So we've got to talk about tips and all those things. We've got to talk about different types of percents. When you invest money in a bank or in a company or in a stock or a bond, you actually get a percent back, right? And so we have to talk about that percent income. We have to talk about all these different things that percent shows up in. It's really quite amazing. Eventually we'll talk about simple interest, which is also related to percents. And eventually we'll talk about, interest is like a percent. It's like, usually when they talk about an interest, you get 15% interest,
I watched Shark Tank, so I know.
Yeah. So you'll see. So in the beginning, this is lecture number 1. This is part 1, basically. Okay. So part 1, and it's pretty straightforward, pretty easy. I didn't want to make it too hard, because tomorrow there will be a quiz, and the quiz tomorrow, I just should tell you right now, will cover the word problems for systems of equations. Okay. Right, all the word problems that we've done, and
This week?
This week, right? And so if you need to get caught up,
I know. I watched the first video, but I kind of just slowed through it just to get an idea.
Right.
I'm gonna rewatch it.
Okay. And we'll probably also have a few things on percent on the quiz tomorrow too, because I don't think they're that hard, and I think you guys have enough time to master this. So sometimes, yes.
For the quiz, can we have extra credit?
I can do that. All right. So for the first kind of thing that you'll see that's really common is something like this: find 80% of 50. 80% of 50. Find 80% of 50. I put this actually on the last quiz, I think, last test. Something like this, just to see how many people knew how to do this. Now, when you actually start doing math with percents, you never leave it in percent form. You always turn the percent into a decimal. You guys remember how to do that? You take that as an 80%. To get it to a decimal, you do what? Yeah.
0.80.
Yeah, you're going to move the decimal to the left 2 places, right? So 80% is the same as 0.80. I moved it from here over twice.
You can also
Okay.
say 0.8, though, right?
And you could say 0.8, totally. Right.
0.8.
Right, and you can put a 0 here. You can put as many zeros here as you want. Doesn't make a diddly squat of difference, right? Right? But you won't see so many zeros. You might see a 0.8 or just a 0.8. I just usually just do 0.8 because it's easier. Whenever you see the word of, what does that mean in math? Multiply. Of. Of always means multiply. Always. Okay? So, my suggestion, there's different ways that people teach percents, and there's one fraction, a part, and a whole, and stuff like that. I choose not to teach that method because it means you just have to memorize yet another formula. And with this, all you have to do is translate English into math, and it's very, very easy. And I want you to get in that habit of doing it. So find 80% of 50. So 0.8 times 50. That's all it's saying, right? And so I either multiply it out longhand, or I get out my handy dandy calculator, which we're
Can you use your phone for a calculator?
50 times 0.8. Yes, you may use your phone as calculators. You just have to ask each time so your phone doesn't get confiscated. Right? So that is 40. 80% of 50 is 40. And that's my answer. Okay? Let's try one more. What if I said find, well, let's try two more. Let's say I said find 90%, let's say 92%. Why not? 92% of 16, right? So these are hard to do in your head, right? So I know I've got to turn that percent into a decimal, right? So I'm going to move it over two places. So it's going to be 0.92 times 16 equals what? So I get out my calculator and I do 0.92 times 16 equals 14.72. Okay? That's really quite straightforward. Now let's say I make it slightly harder. Let's say I say find 3.25% of 70. Okay? I still have to move the decimal which way? To the left, right? So think about it. I've got to move it over twice. Once, twice. So I've got to put a 0 here to take up that space, right? So it's going to be 0.0325. I have to write the whole thing. Make sense? Times, of means times, 70. So I get out my calculator and I go 0.0325 times 70 equals, I can't read it, is equal to 2.275, right? So it's very, that's a fairly big number. That's a very tiny number. Multiplied makes it a fairly tiny number, right? All right, last one of this type. What if I gave you this? I said find 175% of 22. 175. So yeah, I have got to turn this to 1.75 times 22. So 1.75 times 22 is equal to 38.5. 38.5. So those are pretty easy, right? Straight fist of 5. Pretty straightforward.
Are we doing
Right?
this for homework?
Yes.
Yay!
Yeah. Okay. Now, there's different wordings though. There's different ways that they can be worded. Can I erase this?
Yeah.
You finish this? Okay. So there are different ways this stuff can be worded, and it starts to get a little more complicated. So what if I said, let's see, let's start with one of these. Let's say 22 is what number am I on? Is that 4? Is this 5? Did I do 5?
This is 5.
This is 5. Okay. Thank you. 22 is what? Wait a minute, hang on. What am I doing? Wait a minute, not this. Oh, I know what I'm doing. Okay. 22 is 14% of what number? So now suddenly it's a little more confusing. Don't you agree with me? It's like was saying, before all I had to do was just multiply.
Now you have to have an X, right?
Now that's a whole sentence. Don't you agree with me? I'm going to create a sentence in math. In other words, an equation with an equal sign. And I'm going to do exactly what it says. So Harrison, Leo, listen. I'm going to do exactly what it says. Exactly what it says. Guys, I can't teach while you guys are doing it. So it says 22 is 14% of what number? All right, 22. 22 equals, right? I just dealt with those two. 14%. How do I change that? 0.14 of times x. There you go. Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
So now, right? 22 is equals 14% is 0.14 of times what number x. You just turn it into an easy equation, right? How would I solve for x? Yes, Tom.
You divide 14.
0.14, right? Divide both sides by 0.14, right? And so I get out my, I guess I have it. Handy dandy calculator. What would I always say? Do I always say that? 0.14. Okay, and so x is equal to 157.14 approximately.
What?
Isn't that amazing?
How?
Because you are taking a very big number compared to this. Don't you think 22 is pretty big compared to 0.14? And you're asking how many times does this tiny little number that's way less than 1 go into a fairly big number?
Wow.
It goes in 157.14 times. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Sometimes you'll see, let me see if I can think of another way to say this. All right, let's do another one like this so that we're, 87 is 125% of what number? Okay, again, I'm going to write it out exactly the way I see it. 87 is equals, I'm going to turn this into a decimal, 1.25 of times what number x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 1.25. 1.25. So 87 divided by 1.25 is equal to, x is equal to 69.6. That's my answer. Okay? It's pretty straightforward, right? Fist of 5. You guys get these? Yes, for sure?
Yeah.
And everything I'm writing on the board is going in your notes, right?
Yeah.
Just want to be sure, because otherwise, yeah, you are. Okay? What did I just do? Was that 6, 7?
Now you're doing 7 right now.
7. What if I said, what if I said this? What number is 18% of 122? Okay. How would I write this as an equation?
X equals 0.815 times 122. Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense? You guys see that?
Yeah.
We just followed the words. What number is x? Is equals 18% becomes 0.18. Of is times, and in this case I used parentheses for my times, 122. So now I just multiply this times 122. Right? So I get out my calculator again, and 0.18 times 122 equals, so x is equal to 21.96. All right, so now there's another style that you might see. And it was, what percent of 50 is 20? What percent of 50 is 20? So these are slightly trickier. Okay, so these are slightly trickier.
Is it X?
Now there are two, so Caleb, you're gonna have to listen. This is, now it's a little trickier, so you gotta really pay attention. There are two ways to do this. I mean, there's more than two ways. There's always ways, tons of ways to do it. But what percent, when you see the word percent, it means over 100. Do you guys know that?
Yes.
Like if I said 2%, that's the same as 2 over 100. Meaning, I have a chance. If I have a 2% chance of, pulling out the one red. I mean, whatever. If I have a 2% chance, I have 2 out of 100. I'd have to try it 100 times before I'm likely to get 2. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's what percent means, out of 100. So if you chose to use this, you could say X percent, what percent? This is not how I do it. So just watch for a second. This is one way you could, but it's not how I do it. It's harder to do it this way. Because you're dealing with, I'm sorry, what? You're dealing with fractions, right? You're dealing with fractions. I'm going to have you guys come up here and teach it if you want. Right? Okay. So, what percent, X over 100, of times 50 is equals 20, right? Now you have a fraction. You got to multiply everything times 100 to get rid of the fraction. And when you do that and solve for X, you'll have fairly big numbers, but your answer will be exactly what it asked for, what percent. Now, my guess is you would rather do a simpler method. Am I right?
Yeah.
All right, so the simpler method is it's a twofold method, but it's much simpler. Instead of making what percent X over 100, I make X this. So this goes in your notes, right? This is the method. Caleb, this goes in your notes, right? Okay, just want to be sure. X, what percent is, we're going to make that X. So X of 50 times 50. Now, I'm not going to put X times 50. I'm going to put my 50 in front of my X. Because that's how you usually write X times 50. It's 50X, right? It's the same thing. Yes? Right? Is 20. Now that's pretty easy, right? What percent of 50 is 20? So you're going to divide by 50, and you get X is equal to, I'll just do it, 2/5, right? 2 divided by 5 is equal to 0.4. Okay, 0.4. Now, the thing is though, I didn't find the percent, I found the decimal. And I have to turn it back into a percent. So I've got to move it now, the decimal to the right. Does that make sense? I found not the percent, I found the decimal of the percent. So I've got to turn it back into a percent. So it's going to be X is equal to 40%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a twofold step, but this second step is so easy. You just move the decimal over and you've got your percent for your answer. Okay?
But there's another easy way to do it. It's because you see what's like before, it's in the 10.
Right. Exactly. All right, so 8, 9, we'll do 9. Where are we? 9. So, what number, okay. What if I said this? 15 is what percent
15
of 90?
15 equals 90X.
Okay, so 15, right, is equals this times this, or 90x, right? Right? Everybody there? So I'm going to divide by 90, divide by 90, divide by 90. And I got x is equal to 15 divided by
Wait, why would
90.
you divide by 15?
What?
How is 90x?
Oh, right, because the percent, okay.
Wow.
No, so,
All right.
no, so it's 167. No,
So it's approximately.
1,670%.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got to turn this decimal back into a percent. So I'm going to move it to the right. So x is equal to 16.7%. You've got to always remember when you're dealing with percents, if you use this method, you've got to answer the question in percent. If you answer it as a decimal, you've got it partially wrong.
Well, the homework had every single type on
All these types are on this one, okay?
type.
And there are a couple word problems too, which I'm going to let you kind of fend for yourself on. All right, and I think that's all I'm going to show for now.